So Darling in the Franxx wrapped up last weekend, so today I'm gonna give you my non-spoiler thoughts on the show. Let's begin. So thank you for coming by. If it's your first time here, feel free to wander the channel. I got some anime reactions and discussions and so on. Today, I just want to share my thoughts on Darling in the Franxx, and this is gonna be totally honest, okay? I see so many different opinions of this show. It seems kind of like a mixed bag, but it's been a very talked about one this past season, and so I finally got to finish a show that everybody's been watching. And my first question to you is, what did you think of Darling in the Franxx? I would like to know what your personal take of the show was, or, you know, what you've been hearing about it. Feel free to share any thoughts you have in the comments below. I'm gonna get out of the way my personal thoughts on the show, just straight off the bat. I'm gonna let you know, I didn't love it. I didn't love it. We're all gonna have our own personal opinions with this. There's not gonna be a right or wrong one, so just, these are my thoughts, and if you agree or disagree, totally fine. There were some things about it that I did enjoy though. I don't know how I was gonna feel about this being a collaboration between A1 Pictures and Trigger, and boy, I actually really liked the look of the show and the animation as a whole. It was so interesting because it had the character designs that were in like A1 shows like Anohana and Your Lie in April. I could see the A1 style of the characters in this, as well as certain depth moments that Trigger isn't really known for. But I believe this is a Trigger original show, and that definitely shows here. I could feel that this show is definitely Trigger's the main seeder here. But the characters looked really cool and the setting looked great, and I liked the battles that happened in it. It had a very good presentation, and I was really nervous about how this collaboration would work, but it looked great. Another thing is that I really appreciate shows that don't get off at doing fan service. What I mean by fan service is like boob gags or sexual comedy, you know? That's one thing about anime that I really don't care about. I don't care for when it's like, oh, her boobs are huge, oh, comedy, huh? And yeah, there's a couple moments like that in this, but it's not so in your face all the time, and it's actually kind of rare. Like, going through it, those moments hardly ever happen. At least to me. I know some folks think it does have a fair amount of that, but to me, no, it was actually very non-present compared to other shows I've seen anyway. Now, kind of getting to the middle ground here, the world building is something that at first really frustrated me, but then as the show went on, I grew to be okay with it. I didn't really like it, but I was okay with it. And what I mean by that is when the show starts off, it really gives you just an idea of what the show is. It's essentially, imagine a dystopian apocalyptic future that is like after the apocalypse, and humans are fending off these creatures called Caluxosaurs or something. I can never say their name, but they are trying to survive in this Earth, and their way of doing that is having these plantations or sort of like home bases that they need to defend, and in order to keep them alive, they need to keep the Caluxosaurs away, whatever. So they have these kids being various people with like code names, and they need to be co-pilots. It requires a male and a female to operate these robots called FranXX, and that's how they will defend these plantations and continue to survive. And these kids are also raised with the idea that FranXX is the meaning of life. Like, that's what they grow up on. They are literally born for this purpose. And my problem with the show is that it starts off like not really solidifying that. You get that idea over time, but it really trusts its audience right away to do that. And I just talked about this in my Your Name video. Like, I appreciated in that movie that the director trusted the audience to get things quickly. But the issue here that I had at the beginning anyways, was that there's no world building being done to understand and sympathize with these characters. At the core of any story, it can't just have a good plot. It needs good characters that you are compelled to follow. If something has great characters, you can follow them through anything. That's why the Marvel Cinematic Universe works. So the problem with this show is that these characters, there wasn't enough to really sympathize with them for me, because we were getting world building in such tiny detail, like morsels. But then as it grew on, I actually kind of started to like it. I thought it was kind of a predictable circumstance being, oh, we're gonna discover all this stuff with the characters and it's gonna be a huge twist. But then as I gone on, I was like, okay, I kind of can see why they're doing this is because it's really just, like I said, trusting the audience and not focusing on exposition, and I like it when shows and movies do that. It's just that I would have liked to have been more attached to these characters so much more quickly by understanding their circumstances, and if I understood their circumstances more, I feel like I would have been more glued throughout this whole show. For instance, the main two characters. Let me say this right now, and I know I might get attacked for this, but Hero and 02 were not interesting to me in the slightest. I know people are gonna attack me for that because like, oh, 02 is like one of the, probably the best girl of 2018, whatever. Like, look, that's fine. Like, we're all entitled to our own opinion, but just me personally, look, she was too hot for me, okay? She was too hot. So Hero starts off as a very emo character because he can't pilot one of these FranXX, and you find out why that is possibly later on, but at the beginning, you know, there's not enough context for me to care about it. And 02 is our other main character. She's the main heroine of the show, and she's got a lot of things to her that eventually get touched upon. I was very happy with one certain episode that gave finally some goddamn context. I legit was telling people, thank God, some freaking depth in this show. But again, it took a while to be able to do that. In a show, you can't just have like a weak first half or a weak second half. You gotta be good throughout to get a good grade in my book. But yeah, 02's a fun chick. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with her. I just wasn't as like attached to her as apparently a lot of other people. Seriously, man, Twitter had fun with 02. Honestly, my favorite portion of this show was when it focused on the side characters, honestly. There's a portion in the first half where you get a roughly maybe like 5 or 6 episodes that focuses on the rest of the team that Hero and 02 are surrounded by. And yeah, by the way, this is probably gonna trigger a lot of hate, but I didn't have any problems with Ichigo. That is an entire spoiler discussion right there, but there's a lot of hate on this character called Ichigo, and I was fine with her. I was fine with everybody in the characters, and 2 of them later on get a very something arc. I really appreciated the building that these characters had and a little bit of world building as well surrounding them with the side characters, you know, figuring out what really are adults because they look up to adults as kids, as, you know, these figures, as well as like a Papa figure that's kind of like God that they pray to. And there's a lot of things that you get in bits and pieces through the side characters, and that's why the side characters are more interesting to me, is because they were the ones that the world slowly got revealed through, and then eventually you get one huge episode with Hero and 02. But the point I'm getting at is, I like the side characters of the show. They were more compelling to me than the main characters. I'm gonna get shot any minute. There was some drama that was built up with the characters in the first half that just kind of flew away in the second half, like didn't exist anymore in the second half. And that was another thing that I just feel like this show kind of, every ingredient was there. It had an interesting setting. It had good enough characters, and it had really awesome animation presentation. I dug the music. I didn't love it, but I dug it. And all the ingredients were there, but just something about the execution of it all that was totally on purpose, I feel like, but it just didn't mix together well. Like something is missing, some more character depth, just a hair more of world building at the beginning. And again, I didn't hate this show. I did like it. It was an enjoyable watch. I've been telling people it's a pretty good guilty pleasure show. You could see good looking characters. You could see some awesome animation. You could have a good time with it. It has some funny moments. It has a good enough plot. It's just when you mix it all together, it's hard to, I can't really say this is a great show. I enjoyed the first half personally a lot more than the second half, because the second half things started to definitely become hardcore trigger, being, you know, exaggerated plot circumstances and huge plot reveals, and I can't get specific, but there's a lot of stuff that happens in the second half that completely kind of changes the tone of the show. Neither half is bad, but it just kind of, I like the stuff that was being developed in the first half more, and I kind of wish that they continued off of it, but instead I feel like it went really plot heavy instead. Nutshell is that the world and plot are interesting enough, and the characters could be more gripping, but the direction of it all failed to really make me personally compelled by it. But it was great to look at. I'm gonna give Darling in the FranXX a C+. I definitely think you should give the show a shot. Again, I liked the show. It was fine. It just wasn't in that like good tier. It was just like top tier okay. And it is fun to look at, and you might like it way more than me. Thank you very much to my July patrons. You guys make this totally possible every single month. If you'd like to join them to hear reviews about like Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter and other things that I haven't touched upon on this channel, feel free to click on the card above or in the description down below and join the August family. And of course, I would love to know what your thoughts are on the show. Like, you know, what was your favorite pairing? Who was your favorite character? Did you like how it all went? Are you debating about the show or you have questions about it? Feel free to leave any thoughts in the comments. I love to read your guys' comments and respond to them. This is definitely a show that there's enough to talk about, I'd say. If you want more content to watch, check out my Your Name video. My fan base very much requested me to do a video on that. And if it's your first time here, check out the rest of the channel. I have other discussions like this, as well as reactions and highlights and so much more. So thank you for watching, guys, and don't forget to be geek, be proud, and be awesome.